What's up, everyone? Hope everyone's having a nice New Year so far. Nice 2020. It's been a while since I made a lesson video. I actually haven't made a lesson video this year yet. So I thought it was time to start making another one again. And today I wanted to discuss the topic of voice leading on guitar. Now, voice leading is something I learned mainly while studying jazz guitar at MI, but voice leading originally comes to us from classical music, actually, from a classical counterpoint. It's literally called voice leading because it has to do with how a composer would arrange vocal arrangements or arrange songs for just vocals. You know, when they'd have like 4 parts written out, you have bass, tenor, alto, and soprano, and then they would all kind of interchange depending on what chords are being played or depending on what the melody is. That's pretty much what voice leading comes from. Now on guitar, as you can see, you have 6 strings, meaning that at any given moment, the most voices you could have is a 6. So you can see what I'm doing here. I'm thinking of each string as a separate voice. So when I'm playing, say, just an open G chord, I have one voice playing this low G. I have one voice playing this B right next to it. I have one voice playing D, another one playing G an octave higher, another one playing D an octave higher, and then the last one playing G 2 octaves higher. So whenever you're playing a chord on guitar, you can think of each one of the notes you're playing as being like a separate voice. Now, why is this important? Why is it good to know what voice leading is and how can we use it on guitar? Let's say we have this simple chord progression where one way we could play it is actually like this. Now that chord progression sounds pretty nice, but one thing you'll notice is I'm jumping around a lot, making these big awkward jumps, and all the notes are suddenly getting way, way higher as I'm going along. So with proper voice leading, we can actually avoid that, and we can get something that sounds maybe something like this. Now those are essentially the same chords. I added some extra extensions to them, but they're essentially the same chords and the same chord progression. All I did was I just led each note to its closest note in relation to the next chord. So with this example, what I'm doing is I'm starting on the 1 chord, which is a D major 7, and I'm going to the 4 chord, which is G major 7. That's what I did in the first example. In the second example, I stayed in this position. So what did I do there exactly? So what I did was I noticed that D major 7, if we take the notes out of that, we have D, A, C sharp, and F sharp. What about the notes of a G major 7 chord? Well, for that we have G, D, F sharp, and B. Now there's 2 notes in both of those chords that they have in common that exist in both chords, and that would be D and F sharp. Starting from that D major 7 shape, it's these 2 notes. These 2 notes, A and C sharp, don't exist in a G major 7. So all you have to do is switch these 2 notes to these closest G and B notes. In this case, the closest G and B notes is going to be 5th fret D, which is G, and then 4th fret G, which is B, which gives us that chord. So all I'm doing is switching 2 notes, and then the outer 2 notes stay the same. And from there, I go to the 13 because jazz.
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 So you can see with all this voice leading that you could actually play all these chords just all in one position without really moving around that much. So that's cool and all, but how do we get to the point where we can do that? How we can recognize all these chords and all the notes within the chords and where they go to voice lead properly. So the first thing I was taught to do was to start learning my triad shapes, like minor, major, and so on. And I learned that on every group of strings. So you saw there I was playing G, B, E with each one, and then go down to the next string set, which is D, G, B. Now, I went more in depth in the video previously, which I'll actually link in the description of this video, that went over triad inversions and how to play them on guitar and how to practice them specifically. But today, I want to go over doing that same exact process, but for minor 7 chords, major 7 chords, dominant 7 chords, and so on. Now, for 7th chords, you need, of course, 4 voices, so you're going to need 4 strings at least to make each chord. So the way that I would practice these 7th chord inversions was I would think of them in 3 groups. Is one that's starting from the D string, some that are starting from the A string, and then some that are starting from the E string. So let's start with that first grouping, which is starting from D, and we're going to play mainly the D, G, B, and E strings for these chords. So we'll do F major 7, which just root position would be this, with F on the bottom. Now what we want to do is figure out how to play that with the 3rd in the D string and playing all those same notes. So let's look at this chord more closely. We have F, C, E, and A. So if we move up to here, this gives us an A note. So we want to have an F, a C, and an E note now. So what we're going to do is we're going to look for the nearest ones, which right here I can see I have E here, 9th fret G, I have F on B, and then C right there, 8th fret on E string. And that gets you the next inversion, and it looks like that. And also you just get a lot of nice, pretty sounding chords when you do that, because even though this is the same chord as this, it sounds pretty different. And then if we go up another step, we have C. So now we need an F, an E, and an A. So here we have F just directly below that. We have A right here, and we have E, just 12th fret E. And we have this shape. Then the last shape, we're going to start on the E. Then we get A, which is on G right there, C, and then F. Now, usually when I play chords like this, I would actually play it more like this voicing, because I want to avoid that interval. But for the purposes of practice, it's still good to know the shape. Alright, so that's all for major 7 chords. You can also do the same thing for minor chords, which I'm not going to go as slowly with these. But if you know the notes, we have F, C, E flat, A flat. All you're going to do is figure out where all those inversions are. So then we go to A flat in the bass. Then we go to C in the bass. And then the E flat in the bass, which is going to be just that. Pretty much you want to play these so much that you get to the point where you just play it like this. Just one after the other. And then you do the same thing for dominant chords, which is going to give us this shape, and then this, and then that, and then that. So that was the example starting on the D string. What if we have the lowest note on the A string? So if we move this over to C major 7, starting on 3rd fret A, we'll get this voicing, we'll get this voicing, we'll get this voicing, and then this voicing. And then do the same thing for minor 7. And do the same thing for dominant 7. Then we move on to the E string, which gives us voicings like these. And then you do that for minor and then dominant as well. And those 3 chords alone will give you a lot to work with. And you can also even include the minor 7 flat 5 with all those if you're really looking to study jazz, because you're going to want to know that one as well. Going through each chord, it's a really slow and tedious process to have to sit there like, okay, F, C, E, A, and then, you know, A, C, A, E, F, C, and so on. It's going to be a long, tedious process, but this will help a lot. And if you go through it on your own and really think out these chords, then it'll help you memorize them a lot faster. Once you do know them, then you can just take random chord progressions and say, okay, like the most common chord progression is anything with a 2-5-1 in jazz. So this is a G minor 7 chord. We have the notes G, D, F, and B flat in there. G, D, F, B flat. You're going to want to remember those because the next chord, the 5 chord, is going to be a C7 chord. So for that we have C, G, B flat, and E. So now what we want to do is find the notes that those two chords have in common. So I just said C, G, B flat, E. I'm already hearing two chords that they have in common. Now those two notes are G and B flat. These two outside notes. So going to the dominant chord, all you're going to do is switch the D and the F to a C and an E, which the closest ones are going to be right here. And that gets you that same sound. And then from there, the last chord is F major 7, which has an F, an A, a C, and an E. So from here, again we have G, C, E, and B flat. F, A, C, E. So now I already see two notes in common with that. That's the C and the E. The two notes we actually just switched. So all we're going to do is switch the two outside notes. The hell was that? So all we're going to do is switch those two outside notes before we were interrupted by Satan there for a second. Which are these, the G and the B flat. We're going to switch those to an F and an E. Or not an E, an A. And that's going to be just right here. So if you want to play a 2-5-1 off of that, there you go, it's right there. And that's a nice little way to voice lead it. And let's go to the next position. That gets us this chord. So again, we have all the same notes. We want to make this chord into a C, E, G, B flat to make it that dominant chord. So C, E, G, B flat. B flat's right here already. And G's right here already. So all we gotta do is switch these two notes to that C7 chord, which I'm switching it to E and C. And then going to, making our way to F, A, C, E. I'm seeing A right here. We have the E already right here. And then the F is right here. And then we already had a C on top. So that gets you this movement. Continue down with the others. Next position is going to be right here. And then closest C major or C7 chord is going to be this. And that brings us to here. So we get. Now I'm going a little faster now because I want to show you what they all sound like. Because they all have their own quality to it, but I also want you to figure these out on your own. And our last shape is going to bring us to here, which gives it that, and then to here, and then to there, although I would probably voice lead it to that instead. And basically you just want to figure that out for everything. So if we now do a 2-5-1 C major, this will give us the all the voice leading starting on the A string. That's one. That's another. That's another. And then lastly we got up there. So you want to just do this for every single position, then you can continue on doing the E string as well. So this alone will give you so many different ways to voice lead, and then from there it'll be a lot easier to see a bunch of other things you can do, like when I added the 13 to that other chord, to that chord progression I played earlier, and then went to the diminished 7 to the B minor. But these are all just little stepping stones that you can use to eventually get to the point where you can see all these notes and all these ways to voice lead really quickly. And this will help you avoid having to go from like down here all the way up to here and play chords like that. Now, of course, jumping around is not a bad thing necessarily. I'm not discouraging you from doing that, because there's plenty of famous songs that actually utilize that. There's a lot of Beatles songs where they just take one shape and just move it around all over the place. There's, in fact, this song is just, that's all that is. Just moving it up to there. Then move it up again. And then C minor. But this is just to give you another thing to think about when you're writing music, or another thing to think about if you're thinking of arranging some kind of song for guitar. Because one, like I said earlier, it's not only easier to play chords like this, as opposed to jumping around a whole bunch, but it also sounds better. It sounds more smooth when all the notes just kind of blend into each other, rather than all the notes just awkwardly moving all over the place. But that is about all I have to say about voice leading, so I hope this gave you a lot of information to hopefully add to your playing, add to your practice routines, and just give you something new to explore. With that, my name is Adam. Hope you enjoyed this video. Again, hope you got a lot of information out of it, and I will see you on the next one. Goodbye.